Major funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from New York Community Bank, M&T Bank, PBM, Customers Bank, Collins Building Services, AmTrust Title Insurance Company, Marks Paneth, Capital One Bank. Additional funding for these broadcasts has been provided by grants from Amerant Bank, Bank of America, Citizens Bank, Dime Community Bank, Douglaston Development Levine Builders, Flushing Bank, Friedman LLP, Handro Properties LLC Handler Real Estate Organization, Hodges Ward Elliott Inc., Investors Bank, James D. Kuhn Real Estate Institute at Syracuse University, John Catsimatidis Red Apple Group, Keysight Capital Partners, New Banks, Meridian Capital Group, Ocean First Bank, People's United Bank, RPW Group, TD Bank, and these friends. Boy, oh boy, how is it to work in a family business during a pandemic? How do your siblings work out? It's not an easy task, but today I've assembled the four fathers who have their kids working in their family business to discuss the opportunities, challenges of working in a family business, and also to transition the family business to the next generation. My guests, they include John Catsimatidis, who is the chairman and CEO of the Red Apple Group, Lester Petracca, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Triangle Equities, Bert Brodsky, who is the Chairman of BEB Capital, and last but not least, Robert Wise, the President and CEO of the RPW Group. So let's look at it this way. Bert, as Lee was saying to us on a show earlier today, you had a couple of siblings in the business, a total of 5, including you?
Including me, 5. Lee is the youngest of my 4 children. And what's interesting was who maintains this business, or do we just liquidate the business when I'm no longer around? And my 4 children all decided that the economics made sense to have the business go on. But then the next question is, who runs the business? You can't have 4 presidents. And I was very lucky because the 3 oldest realized Lee had the skill set to continue, the skill set the 3 of them didn't have. So they all work for my youngest son.
Now, I think Lee had mentioned that maybe one of your sons recently left the business.
He's my maverick. This is not what he wanted to do. And so he did leave the business, and he's happy not being here. He didn't, quite frankly, did not want to live by the rules of our business. And it was a friendly departure, which is unusual, I think, because you would think if one child left the business, there would be some animosity, but there is not. It's a very close family. We all live in the same village, and he just didn't want to be in the real estate business, which is his prerogative.
You know, Lester, you're basically a second generation business, but you created your own business. How was it before working with your brothers in Petracca and Sons, and then now some of your sons, including Evan, who is the chief operating officer of Triangle, and Chris has recently joined the business. How do you see that working out?
Well, I think the dynamics in my family were a little bit different than they are in our current family. As my mother once said, if she knew her sons would be working together, she would have raised them differently. You know, there's only one head, as Bert points out, and we all wanted to be the head. So the construction business that my father started and I built with my brothers, I moved on from and became a real estate developer on my own. And now working with my sons, there's nothing I guess the only thing more exciting than that are my grandchildren. So it's really wonderful. My son Evan has kind of taken the reins, like Bert. I think there's an understanding. I have 5 children, and there's kind of an acceptance that Evan is the one with the skill set to run the business the best. And so he's got the reins.
John, when I had your daughter, Andrea, I said, when did you get involved with the business? And she said at the age of 4 years of age. Okay. That the family has been involved because you have your son, you have your daughter and your wife, and everybody's involved with the business.
Well, everybody is involved in business one way or another. Both my kids, I have 2 great kids, my daughter, Andrea, and my son, John Jr. My daughter, Andrea, is more interested in politics these days, and she's also interested in the investment business. Neither of my children want anything to do with the supermarket business, which is the food business. We walk a fine path. The energy business and the real estate business, both my kids like. So it's work in progress right now.
Robert, you once worked when you were in Uruguay in a family business. When you came over to America, you started your own business, but you were getting some of the merchandise and the product over there. How do you see the difference of you working with Andrew and your daughter had worked in the business? How's the transition for them?
Well, frankly, it's been a terrific experience. I would say probably it's been one of the most rewarding experiences in my life. I started the business we are in 40 years ago, and I never had a partner. I was the only one making decisions, and all of a sudden working with my children became a very different experience. And frankly, I worked with my father at one point, and it was not such a good experience. It was very difficult for me. He was a terrific guy, a very smart guy, but the chemistry was not there. So I guess I learned what not to do by that experience, and I'm trying to implement that with my kids. My daughter, she's an attorney. She decided that she did not want to be in the real estate business. But Andrew, on the other hand, he's very involved. He's really running now pretty much most of the business. And we have a terrific experience. It's been a very rewarding experience. And I think if I have to define why it's such a good experience, the word is respect. There's a mutual respect. And that is really what guides us in the different decisions that we make and in the way we run the business.
One of the questions that I asked your children and many children is how receptive are your fathers with regard to when there's a new idea, okay? Who came up with the ideas is the question. Is it the father or is it the son, or how willing are you to accept a new idea to do some new business? Robert?
Well, I think I'm very open to new ideas, and we have really changed the business in a way. I was always a suburban office developer, and now Andrew took us to New York City and recently to Connecticut, and we moved from only office space. Now we are doing apartments, and I think that change is a very positive thing, and we have to embrace that. And my view is that I welcome new ideas and I encourage them.
Bert, one of the comments that Lee made basically was you've become more of an institutionalized than you were before because of some of the skills that he received when he was at Newmark. And the same thing, Robert, also the skills that Andrew gave at Newmark. Do you see yourself being more as an institutional as opposed to a entrepreneurial?
Yes is the answer to that question. Remember, in my career, I seized on every opportunity to make money. So I did an assemblage in South Beach. I owned a bungalow colony in Westchester County. I own a residential building in Queens, and Lee is much, much more focused. He goes down an industrial real estate portfolio. He's working on that, and he will not let me basically grab what I see as bargains outside his focus. And I guess it's the right thing. I never did it before, but it's unusual for me. But we have a chief operating officer, Kevin Katanchi, who is like our mediator between Lee and I. When we have a difference of opinion, he expresses the deciding vote, really. And I try not to be authoritative about it. I try and be as open as I can. And he's not wrong. I mean, I would not now develop something in Florida ground up. It's just not our focus. So we try to stay focused on the industrial, which is working out. And I understand what he's trying to do.
Lester, what do you see? I mean,
well, that's one of the things, and Robert knows, and Bert probably as well, and John perhaps, one of the things that you get with your children coming in is the counsel. For a long time, I made all the decisions myself. It's nice to have someone to sit down with and talk to, where there's that mutual respect that Robert talked about, and new ideas are coming from my son Evan, and we are also looking very hard. As you know, we have a large logistics center going up next to Kennedy. We're looking at industrial. Why? Because with e-commerce, the industrial market is the hot market. So you go for where the demand is, and those ideas come a large part from Evan. And so I stay receptive to open dialogue with Evan, and he is also more focused too. We're not as eclectic as we once were. As you know, just about every project I did was different. Now we're much more focused to a certain class of asset.
John, I mean, you started many years ago in the supermarket business. You've expanded into so many other businesses. How responsive were you when they said, let's go into prop tech or certain other businesses that you hadn't been involved with?
Well, I was taken back sometimes, but my daughter has her own ideas. My son has his own ideas. And I've taken the attitude is, okay, I'll allocate X amount of capital and go ahead, do with those ideas, make those investments. Where I rather them at this stage when I'm still around to fix things. Like I said, it was a COVID year. You never know when a bus is going to hit you. Knock wood, I'm healthy as a horse or whatever, healthier maybe. But I'd rather have them make a mistake for 3 million, 5 million, 10 million when I'm around versus making a mistake for 100 million. So I've given them their leeway on deals to do $3 to $5 to $10 million deals on their own, and rather than now than make a big mistake if I'm not around. Everybody learns from their mistakes, no matter what anybody tells you. The only time you really learn is when you learn from your mistakes.
I think that's true, John.
Yeah.
I mean, with the exception of Lester, all of you were in different businesses before you got involved with the real estate business. Okay, so you've evolved. So the question is, how do you evolve and allow your siblings to take the business to the next step? Robert?
Well, frankly, I think that there is only one way to do it, and that is to just let them do it. Let's be open. And I think if I have to point out to something that I learned in the last few years working with my son, is to listen more and to speak less. And the more I listen to him and the less I say, the more we grow. And I think that that is because young people have different ideas, have a different approach. And if they have common sense and they are smart and they build up some experience, they usually make the right decisions. So my approach has been very simple: to just stay in the background and only give my opinion when I'm asked, and frankly, maybe a little more during these tough times with COVID, where I think the gray hair or the no hair has helped to just keep the boat stable when people were getting very nervous and looked like it was the end of the world. I think the experience of having been around for so long and having weathered 9/11 and the financial crisis and many others gave us the perspective of knowing that this was not the end of the world. It was just going to be a tough time. And if you are prepared and you have the ability of weather the storm, things will come back. And maybe from a financial point of view, from a business point of view, maybe opportunities will come up. So I think that my role is more to be there as additional support and to just be open and let things develop.
Here's the question. Bert and John, as I say, are serial entrepreneurs and will go into a variety of businesses. And to seize the opportunity, which you all look at. Have you recently, especially during the pandemic, has the world changed on how you operate with your family business, with the children and the other members of the family? John?
The world has changed dramatically, especially in New York. New York has become a ghost town, or, it's just, and the question is, we have licked the COVID problem. But I think the world is changing permanently in New York. That's what I'm afraid of. The crime problem, the political atmosphere. We built Coney Island. We spent a lot of money on Coney Island. We spent $400 million in Coney Island. And we have the rights to build 3 more buildings for another 800 million, 900 million, whatever. The question is, do we allocate that money for New York City, or do we go down to Florida and visit everybody else?
You're talking about a major project in Florida. Who's making the final decision? Because that's the biggest situation in transitioning of a family business, allowing different thoughts to get involved and different people.
Well, I think I'd like my family to be involved. I always kept my kids close. I am the guy that says, I don't want you to go to Timbuktu to go to college. Both my children went to NYU Stern, and they got a great education there. And why? I wanted my kids close. I wanted to give them a hug every morning. I wanted to give them a hug every night. And they're only a ride away. I don't want to send them to Tucson or Texas or wherever, because you send your kids away, some of them never come back. They like where they are. I like my kids to be near me.
Here's another question. It's difficult to work in the shadow of a very successful father and mother. How difficult do you think that is? Bert?
I'll tell you, it's interesting. Lee has seized on the opportunity based upon my own reputation. Remember, I made my career originally in healthcare, in technology, and that's where I was very well known through the state. Lee has seized on my reputation. So he sees me as a springing board for what he's doing. So when he was recently interviewed, he said, the person he spoke with said, well, your father is a legend on Long Island. He seized on that. He's of my children. He'll meet senators and congressmen and businessmen, and he's glad that I was there first. And I try and let him have his head. I try not to interfere, and he is the perfect person for what he's doing. And like John, I keep my children very close. I have 11 grandchildren, and the furthest is 4 miles from me, and all my children are there. So I get to hug and kiss them all the time, at least before the pandemic. Now you have to get tested first, which we are. So I'd say Lee has benefited greatly by me being in one place for over 50 years and being in business on Long Island for 50 years. He's definitely seized on that benefit, which is glad. I'm glad.
So here's the question, especially since all of you are into, you're always, I don't want to say, but you're all deal junkies in a certain way. So since you're all deal junkies and you come up with a thought, or your sons come up with a thought, how open are you to accept that maybe it's something you should go into? I mean, Robert, a great example is what you were saying with about office buildings in New York City, coupled with the residential development, and now going back into Connecticut.
Well, frankly, I think that the reality is that we have to embrace change. We have to give them the room. We have to move along with them, and we have to encourage them. I mean, what is success? Success is for our kids to be really happy in what they're doing, and take the business we have into a new level. And now, how do we accomplish that? Maybe being more active or less active. My approach is to take a step back. I'm still looking for deals every day. I'm still as hungry as I have always been, but I leave the turf open for him to make the decisions and just be supportive.
Bert?
I let Lee kind of have his head, but where we disagree, I think it's more my wanting to do something different than he wants to do something. He's more focused. The lending business, you're right, that was his idea. And not 100 years ago, but 60 years ago, I was in that business. I like what he has in mind. He is focused because he's focused on lending in the real estate business. He wants to lend on things we could operate. He does not lend to own, but he does lend to know that we can operate if we have to. So I'm the one really who goes more offline. I recently started 2 years ago a high-tech home care industry product that it's interesting. He says, if you want to do it, Dad, go ahead and do it. But it's almost like he's okaying me to do something, which is,
He's saying,
I kind of laugh to myself.
is he saying to do the business within BB Capital or do it as a separate operation?
No. Everything we own sits under BBB. You're right. BB is like a holding, but everything we own lies under that. So that's his theory, and I have no problem with it. It's a whole one family business.
Lester, as I said, you have two sons in the business now. You have 3 other siblings. What would you like to see happen with the next 3 siblings?
Michael, honestly, my wife, Tracy, and I have only asked our children to do one thing, and that is to smile. So to the degree that they want to be involved in Triangle Equities, they've all been invited in. They don't all want it. I have a son that's launched a hedge fund. He is happy where he is. His younger sister works with him. My daughter, Deborah, works for PNC. She's in Baltimore. They didn't stay close. They all went to different schools. They all picked their own schools. And so, as John pointed out, Debbie stayed in Williamsburg because she went to William and Mary. So I want them to the degree that they want to be involved. They have been raised actually to never be involved in my business. I want them to think on their own and to realize they had to make their own way. But after Evan served in the Navy and came to work between that and Columbia, I just saw too much talent to let it go. And his siblings all agree. He's got, between his military experience from the Naval Academy and his degree from Columbia and his focus, that he's the guy to take the reins, and they're happy to do it. And they're all smart. They all have different talents. I just want them to be where they want to be.
What do you want your
Leslie,
children
you
to
said,
do?
I just want to comment on one thing. Leslie, you say exactly what I always say. Let our children be happy. My oldest one who left wants to be an artist, and he has the fortune, he has the ability, and and we've given him the right to do whatever he wants to do and make him happy. That's all you really want for your children, is to be happy.
The one thing, Bert, you're right, smile. And if they're smiling, what do we care what they're doing as long as it's legal?
John, what do you
They're
want to
lucky
see?
parents to be able to do that.
I want my kids to be happy too. Just I feel the same way as you guys. My son has gotten very involved with the company and overall companies. And my daughter, like I said, went more into politics and is involved in also the investment business with our company. And, getting rid of some companies if they don't want them, I might have to do that. And the big family decision is, do we do more outside of New York City? I've always, for 70 years, I've been a New Yorker. Well, maybe it's time.
So in summation, I think the fortunate thing is that you raise wonderful children and siblings who are working well together. And, that's the most important thing. And as I think you said, let them smile. Let them smile and be happy is important. And I'd like to thank John, Lester, Bert, and Robert, and I'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Stay-
Nice speaking.
Thanks, Michael.
Bye-bye.